So good afternoon. My name is Linda Besmer, and I'm with Muses 3, and my partner, whom I'll have introduce himself, and I represent myON by Renaissance. We also represent the Freckle by Renaissance program and Schoolzilla by Renaissance, and a brand new program that Renaissance has just acquired called La Lilo, which is for primary, for pre-K K1. So we have been working with those programs. Carl and I have been representing the myON program since 2013. And El Campo was actually one of our very first customers. So we initially worked with Chris Skinner, and we've worked with Ms. Trevino across several projects and grant opportunities, and we're delighted to be here today. Carl, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure, just briefly, my name is Carl Franklin. I'm a former public and law librarian. I've also got a doctorate in instructional design and technology, and look forward to helping you folks make the most effective use you have of myON, because we want you to be happy and love the program.
Well, thank you, Carl. And I neglected to mention, I also have been I've been a public school or public librarian. That's actually where Carl and I met. We were both paraprofessionals working or going to school and working in the public library. So that's actually how we met. You have two librarians here to help guide you. What I want to do is just bring up the agenda for the session today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so what we hope to do today is just kind of provide an overview of the myON program. This is not a professional development session or training, and it's not meant to do anything other than kind of provide you with a framework for myON, and also make sure that you know where some of the resources are that are available for the myON program. And so what we'll do is we'll actually walk through. I'm going to log in using I know some of our librarians actually have building administrator credentials. So I'm going to log in as a building administrator, and just kind of show you what some of those credentials look like. I'll log in using a teacher login that I created, a demo teacher. And then I'm going to log in as a student underneath this teacher so that you can see what the new placement component looks like. And then Carl and I will walk you through the resource that we've created, which is a tiny URL, but lots of links to different programs and resources for the myON program. So if anyone has any questions, please bring them up as we go along. And if there are any additional things that you'd like to see if we don't cover everything, please do not hesitate to speak up. Again, what we want to do is just kind of provide you with more information about the myON program. And the district has contracted for a 90-minute live virtual professional development session. And so we hope this will kind of give you some resources to use in the meantime, and perhaps give you more information as to what you'd like that formal professional development session to actually cover. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing that screen. And Carl has just asked if you would, as we're going along, if you don't mind entering any questions that you have in the chat, then he'll be monitoring the chat, and will get my attention and make sure that I'm aware of that question. Sometimes when I get rolling, you know, he might text me on the phone saying, stop. But again, don't hesitate to take yourself off mute and speak up as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is go over to my login. And what I did is I decided just to use Hutchins because they cover the K through 3, I believe. And so what I'd like to do is kind of log in as the building administrator. And when you're logging into myON as a building administrator, you're going to be going to that www.myon.com login. I don't know with a class link whether or not you have a single sign-on portal that you use or an LMS. So as a teacher or a student, you may be logging in a little bit differently. Because I've created a teacher and student login outside of ClassLink, when I log in as a teacher and as a student, I'll be going to that same www.myon.com. So all of that what I'm doing may look a little bit different from the way that you log in. I just wanted to make sure that that doesn't panic anyone. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and log in as my building administrator. And if there are folks that need, oh, I'm sorry, that was the wrong school. You do have to have the school name correct. So I was actually logging in as Hutchins. And so the first thing that you do is go ahead and type in the name of the school, or as much of the name until you see your school within your district show up. So we want Hutchins Elementary as part of El Campo. And so this is the building administrator login. And I just wanted to show you a couple of things for those of you that will have building administrator access, so that you're comfortable with kind of navigating within this at this level. And if there are folks that should have building administrator access and don't, please, Dolores, if you would let us know, or if Valerie Kaufman can let us know, then what we'll go ahead and do is make sure that we create or share those login credentials. The building administrator, as it says, can really kind of look at everything that's going on in the building. So the building administrator can look at students. You can filter by grade, you can filter by role, so you can look at students and faculty. You can also look at rosters or groups within the building. So it lets you see each teacher's roster and the number of students that are assigned to them in that roster. You can create projects as a building administrator, and then those projects can be assigned to all of the students in the building or all of the students in a grade. When you run reports at the building administrator level, if I go into core report, you can see that can be run by students in the building, students in a grade, students that are in a group if you've created a group of students as the building administrator, and you can run reports for faculty rosters in the building or for all grades. So if you want to see what certain things look like across each grade in the building, again, the reports allow you to do that. And there are a variety of different reports that are available. And I'm going to show you some resources that can help you, again, with some of this information. And then at the account level, this lets you see some basic information about about your school. Collections will show you what your students have access to. So there are 989 buildings that are for upper elementary and older students. So these would be books that might be for students in grades 5 all the way up through grade 12. You may not want to turn those off. You have the ability to turn those off, but you may not want to, because you may have some students that are reading at higher levels at your campus. And then you can see each of the publishers, including free publishers like myON Classics for middle school. You can see all of those publishers that are assigned to this building. You also have the opportunity to look at settings. So you can look at myON book quizzes, AR quizzes, book reviews, the literacy tools that students have access to. And then you also have the opportunity to look at what kinds of metrics you want to see in your reports. Do you want to see scaled scores, ATOS and ZPD? And if you're using Accelerated Reader, which I believe Hutchins has, then you may want to keep that listing available. And then there are others. This site is using American English. And the placement test is optional. We're going to talk about that in just a couple of minutes. And then the opportunity to kind of reassess students. And again, if you want students, I believe that you folks will no longer have stars, so you don't need to worry about that. And if I had made any changes in the account for the building, I would want to make sure to hit that save button and save those settings. And then the last component that's over here is books. And there is the ability within myON that if you need to block a student or a grade level from seeing content, but you don't want to necessarily block the book for all students, you can search for the book here, and this is only at the building and district administrator level, and then you can actually set a minimum grade level. So there may be a title and you would want your third graders to have access to it, but you wouldn't want students at the second grade. So again, you can search for that book title or series, and then you can actually set that minimum grade level. The minimum grade levels that are included in myON are actually established by the publishers, not by myON. So that's really not anything that myON or Renaissance has control over. I'm sure the district has a book challenge process that if someone is challenging the content of a book and its appropriateness for students, most school districts actually have a process for a parent to go through if they have questions about that kind of content. And myON is respectful of that. We just want to make sure that if there is content that you do want to block or remove access for students, that there's the ability to do that. So that's kind of what that piece is. When I go to look at are there any questions about any of those settings? I know I went through them fairly quickly, but I just wanted to kind of make sure as a building administrator, you kind of saw what the controls look like. Okay, I don't see any chat messages from Carl, so I'll go ahead and move on. The library controls here look exactly the same as my library controls as a teacher. And when I go in and search, I have the opportunity to work within this setting. And we'll see this will look exactly the same when we go into the teacher mode. And you also have the ability to search by standard. And again, this will be the same as when we go into the teacher mode, that I can actually go in and I can search by TEKS. And this will cover up through grade 8 as far as any of the TEKS, but I can go in grade 3, and I'm looking at my either English or Spanish ELA. And again, I can go in and look at very specific content, you know, demonstrate and apply phonetic knowledge by. And literally, I will get a listing of books. I can see the lower grade range, the upper grade range, the guided reading level. And if a student's using the audio, how long it will take for the student to listen to that book, how many pages are included. So you have all of that metadata or all that wonderful information. You also have the ATOS level and the Lexile level included. If there aren't any questions about the building administrator access, I think the only other piece over here, let's see. Yeah, this will look the same in the teacher mode as well. As far as the user information, everyone has the ability to select their own avatar. I don't know if the default is Krabby Pants, but we do see a lot of folks with the Krabby Pants avatar. And then you also have the ability to indicate interests, and then activity kind of lets you see as far as logging in as a building administrator at Hutchins. I haven't read any books using this particular login, so it does let you see the activity. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log out as a building administrator. I'm going to log in as the teacher that I've set up at Hutchins. And so this is a little bit, and again, some of this information will be on that tiny URL that I mentioned. The company has a whole series of how-to webinars, and along with the how-to webinars are recording. So we've been doing those how-to webinars across the whole summer and into this fall. And a couple, at least one or two of each of those webinars for the different products have actually been recorded. So when if you were to go to this link, it'll pull up the registration page. You can either register to attend a how-to webinar live, or you can view the recording of one of the webinars that have been done. And we're actually going to look at these, some of the other Renaissance resources and the back to school website. We'll be looking at some of those, some of that information when we go to the tiny URL. And thank you, Carl was just mentioning that, of course, the Getting Started webinars are actually at no cost. And so they're a great resource for your folks to take advantage of this year. So the interface looks very similar to what you saw for the building administrator, but instead of school, I now have classroom. And so when I go to classroom, I can look at students. And I have the ability, this is my roster. So your rosters are actually populated by class link. So a teacher's roster will be set up by whatever is in your student information system. And then that information gets communicated from your student information system into myON through class link. If you do want to set up ad hoc groups or learning groups within your classroom, you can do that by just clicking Add Group. You do need to name your group. And so I can name this Red Rice Birds. The description is not something that students would see. I'm just going to put test group. And if your students are old enough, or they're used to using Google Classroom where they might have a code that they enter, if you click on, then students will actually, you'll see when I create this group, when you click save, there's now a code that I could put up on the whiteboard in my classroom, and students could actually join that group by putting in the code. And this is a good way if you want to set up things like book clubs or other types of groups. That's a great way to do it is, again, if your students are old enough to be able to kind of enter that group code, or that's something that they're used to doing. When I go in, when I look at either my roster or I look at my group, I have the ability to assign. And this will actually pull up students in my building. And then I can go and look by grade. And if I wanted to look at second graders, I mean, I literally have kind of the pick list, and I could go and click on students and then click apply. And it would actually move those students over into my, into that group. If I already had set up, say, a roster for students for HB 4545 intervention, and I wanted to move those students or copy that entire roster over to my Red Ricebirds group. If I had that group set up, I would just need to click on the name of the group. It would show up here. You can see I just have my roster or Red Ricebirds, but I can go to my roster. It's loading that student. I simply click on that student. You can see there's a select all button. So if I wanted everybody in that group, and then I click apply, now I can see I have one student in my group and I have one student in my roster. So again, it's very easy to actually set up groups that you can work with. We're not going to go into projects in any depth, but projects actually allow you to look at content that others have created or to create content yourself. And that content can then actually be assigned to students. If you wanted to assign a selection of books to students with some activities, either a writing activity or a graphic organizer, that's kind of the way that you could do that. And Carl, I'm blanking on, I know we had some that were set up by TEKS. Can you take yourself off mute and just let me know how we might search by those? Some of the
Sure. So if, and we have projects in all major subject areas for K3, but if you wanted to search English, you would just do TEKS-110. And you'll see there are a wide range of those from pre-K through grade 12. And we could refine these more by going to the specific level of TEKS that we wanted to.
And and again, so these are just projects that Carl has created, but there are projects that the myON community worldwide have created as well. So we were logged in, we're logged into Hutchins, and my teacher is a grade 3 teacher. If I wanted to look at this project as a teacher, I can see that this is what it's about. We're going to read and analyze traditional stories about tricksters. I can see the books that are there, and some of the books might be a little bit too high for my students, but I see I have both English and Spanish books, and that might be very appropriate for my audience. And if this, I can see the that there's a vocabulary activity, there's a story map checklist, a pre-writing activity, and then I have students write. So this is something that I like. All I would need to do is select copy to my projects. This is letting me know there's some books that aren't part of my myON subscription. And the first thing that we recommend that you do is rename the project so that if you make changes and want to share it back out, it's not being shared back out as a Muses 3 project. And you have the ability to, so this is just my myON demo teacher. And this had a due date, you can see, of 2016. So I can go ahead and just take out the, the due date. And I can go in to any of the areas. I know, again, there were some books in there that didn't look like they were necessarily the right, oops, that were the right grade level. So if I wanted to take out some of those higher level books, all I would need to do is unclick them. So again, if there were some books that I thought, you know, really just didn't look like they were appropriate for my students, when I do that, then that's going to go ahead and take those books out. It doesn't remove them from the project. It doesn't delete them, I'm sorry, but it does remove them from what your students would see. The other kinds of things that you can do when you're in this mode is you can disable the myON quizzes, book quizzes. You can turn off the AR quiz link. So you have the ability to kind of make those kinds of changes. And you can also say, I'm not expecting my students to read all of those books, but I want them to read 2 different books about tricksters. And then the kind of the strange thing is there's not a save button here, but if you just click outside the window, it has made those changes in the reading task. And remember, I changed the name of my project. So I do want to make sure that I click my save button, and I can now see this project here. And I have the ability to edit it further. If I want to assign it, I can assign it to either my roster or my group. I'm going to go ahead and assign it to my group, and I'm just going to click on my student. And now when I log in as my demo student, you'll actually see that project as being assigned to that student. So the broader community, again, if we were looking at things like weather and you were doing a unit on weather, I mean, there are literally 100 projects, and you can say, I really just want projects though about weather for grades 2 and 3. And we still have 100 projects that are available. So again, you can go in and just kind of, and here's one about the water cycle. So again, you can take a look at all the different projects. Again, when you click on the little eyeball to investigate, it's going to show you more about the project, and you can determine if that's something you're interested in or not. And I need to, oh, and then if I just click on my little arrow, then it will move that back off. So that's just a little bit more about projects. Reports, you'll see the same reports that you saw when I logged in as the building administrator, except now these reports are just for my students, that those would be the students in my roster or students that I've assigned in a group. And you can see my little group of red rice birds now shows up. So if you want to run a report for just that group, it gives you the opportunity to do that. And then the other thing that we can do is I can look at reviews. Students do have the opportunity to write a book review. They have the opportunity when they finish reading a book to both rate the book and also review the book. And so, book reviews are not published until a teacher or the building administrator has approved them. So this is where you would actually look at book reviews and then determine whether or not it was something that you wanted to approve, or you're just going to read. And again, it has a little profanity checker as well. When I go to the library, again, I'm going to see the same kinds of opportunities to search. This will look the same. And then searching by standard, again, is going to operate exactly as it did with the building administrator. And when I go to, when I click up here for my account, it'll give me my user information. What's helpful here is if you either don't assign a grade level or assign a grade level that's at the upper end, it will, when you go in to search in the library, it gives you these filters, and then it'll also give you limits. And what's important there when your students, especially younger students, are searching, and you'll see when I log in as a student, you won't have as many things that you can limit the search by, or the same kinds of filters, because students don't necessarily need that level of sophistication. So that's where the limits and filters come in. If you don't see those, sometimes they're hidden, and all you need to do is click on this little, looks like a funnel with info pouring in, or one of our colleagues described it once as a martini glass. So if you click on that, though, you'll see it'll open up the limits and then the filters. So if I look at a topic like rock, and you can see I have all kinds of things from Little Rock Girl to rocks and to rock stars. And I can say I'm really only interested in nonfiction books, and I really want books. I'm still at Hutchins, and I really only want books up through my grade 3. And so I can go ahead and click on that, and that will limit the kinds of books that I'll see. And I do have the opportunity also to enter language if I want books in English, books in Spanish, and books that are bilingual. Again, it's going to give me that information. I can click off books that are in English, and then I'll see what books I have available. The other thing is, if you are searching in Spanish, you do need to use the Spanish term. And so I would need to go in. If I want to search for a book in Spanish, then I'll want to make sure I'm using the Spanish term, rocas, or for family, you would search familia, just to make sure, again, that you're finding books. While I'm talking about that, I also, let's see. Nope, that's not right. So Carl, I'm going to ask you, I know they moved the where you, I don't know how to get out of system check. Let me see.
Yep.
Okay, and if I wanted to look at the Spanish interface, I know they've moved that button.
So could you go back to like your Renaissance myON in the upper left corner? Yep. It should be there at the bottom. I don't see it.
Yeah, usually it's down here in three little bars together. And that gives you the opportunity to yes, Ms. Dolores will send the recording off to you. Thank you so much for your participation today. And I think I actually have a link for the Spanish interface, so we'll look at that. But no, well, we'll find it, I promise, and make sure that we get that to you. And so the interface is available both in English and in Spanish. So I will get that information for you all. I'm going to go ahead and log out as the teacher now and log in as my student. And the one thing before I do that, let's see. Let me go back to my classroom. No. All right, I'm going to go ahead and log in as a student, and there is a change in myON as to how students are assessed when they're in the myON program. And so there's previously there had been a Lexile placement assessment, which was something that was a timed adaptive assessment. It was 35 questions in 25 minutes, and you had to schedule a whole class period. That assessment has now been placed by a very short but accurate assessment through the STAR program. And that's regardless of whether or not you have STAR, that reading assessment is now built directly into myON. So I wanted to show you what that looked like. So if I click Finish Setup, it's letting me see that this is what my questions are going to look like. And it can take as much as 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and do this so that you can kind of see what this looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm ready. Well, heck. Well, let me see if it's, I'm going to have to log back in to myON then. as my student. I'm not sure why that's not showing up. I'll check into that too, because I checked it yesterday and I was able to get there. I just didn't want to go ahead and complete the assessment. I wanted to show you all what it looked like. But I know we just received the order, so I'll make sure that all the elements of the of your renewal are set up correctly. So here's our student. What will happen is once this information is in from the short little assessment, then that will influence the books that are recommended for me. Until that happens, if I click on see more, all of the books that are being, these are going to be based on my ZPD, and they're also going to be based on my grade. And I had signed in as a third grader. So these are going to be books that, again, would be appropriate for a third grade student. And once students have taken that brief little assessment, then what will happen with those book recommendations is the book recommendations will be based on what the student's instructional reading level is according to that assessment. The other thing that influences student book recommendations are the interest survey. And I did go ahead and just accept this. So the interest survey, the way that students would see it would look like this. And students have the ability to go in and say, you know, I really don't like math, or, you know, it's okay. I mean, so students can go in and edit this. The default language is English, but students have the opportunity to also click Spanish, which will then show the students books in both English and in Spanish. And so my, again, if I go back to my login, again, I can see that here are some books that have been recommended to me. Again, these are based right now on my grade level, and then also my interest survey that I filled out. You can see that project that I assigned, that the myON demo teacher assigned. And if I click on this, again, it will show me all the different books about tricksters. And these are the different activities that that teacher had assigned in that project. So this is what the project looks like from the student side. So I just wanted to make sure that you saw that. If I go in to my library, again, I can look at books that are recommended to me. I can go in and browse, and I can browse by category, again, by fiction, by nonfiction, and say I really only want to look at nonfiction books. And I want to look at, you know, I do or don't like books in the graphic novel format. Again, this will give me the opportunity to go in and I can look at books about all different types of animals. And then my list is the opportunity, again, whether teachers or students. Looks like Carl found out how to change the, oh, I won't save that. I'll let you tell me how to, oh, it's at the bottom of, okay. So Carl did send a picture that shows how to change the from the English to the Spanish interface. And that's available for students as well as for teachers and building administrators. What my list allows a student to do is if I find a book that I like, if I go back to my browse mode in my animals, and I, gosh, do whales have wings? That sounds kind of cool. I'm going to, if I click the little button that has the heart, then those are my favorites. And so those are books that are of particular interest to me. And then once, and you have that opportunity as a building administrator or a teacher as well to add things to my favorites. When I go to my favorites, then it's like having a virtual bookshelf where I can put books. And you can also then create book bundles, which allows you to kind of put a group of books together and share those. So a teacher can share books with students. If you do create a book bundle as a teacher and share it or assign it to students, you really don't have the opportunity to see how many of those books they've read. When you assign books in a project, you can actually monitor the project and see how many students have started it and what kind of progress they've made and if students have finished the project. So it gives you, a little bit different level of control, if you will, or ability to kind of see, to progress monitor, if you will. And then projects would be projects that have been assigned to me as a student. And then when I go to my little student icon, again, I can look at any progress that I've made. Well, I've really only spent 3 minutes reading yesterday. I can look at my interests, my activity, if I've written in my journal. I can also look at my portfolio. Again, if I've written in my journal, those kinds of things will show up in my portfolio. When I click on avatar, this is where I can go change from the default Krabby Pants to something else that I like. And I'll go ahead and change my little avatar. And then my profile is kind of cool, and teachers can pull up the profiles for their students. This will give you a nice little infographic for that student, how much time they've spent reading, how many books they've completed, how many words or pages they've read, what time of day are they reading, and myON tracks all of that information. And then am I reading nonfiction or fiction books? And so again, it's a great, and you can see the print button up here. It's a great thing to be able to share with parents so that they can kind of see how their students are doing. So that's that little profile button. Are there any questions about the myON interface before and I know that was a real broad overview. That assessment that was showing up when I first logged in, this is something that the building administrator, when we were in the building administrator setting, it said placement as optional. You can make placement required if you want to make sure that you are kind of doing that assessment at the beginning of the year so that students are being placed in myON according to their instructional reading level. If you do not use that, then students are actually placed by their grade level, the grade level that comes across your student information system with ClassLink. So that's an option that is available at each school. The STAR assessments actually start in grade 2. So it's grade 2 all the way up through grade 12. Are there any questions though before I stop sharing here and we go look at the resource page? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop that. Carl, can you see the myON resource page, or do I need to stop sharing and start over?
No, yes, I can see the page. It looks great. Thanks.
Oh, okay, wonderful. So we've refreshed this with some new resources. There's actually a new video. And so if I click on the picture of the young lady, this is a short little video that's available, and you would just click the play video. And on that, yes, so Miss Leah, you'd asked about the access to the pretest, and Carl did answer that. That little short version of STAR, that 10 question or 10-minute assessment, 10 minutes or less, is actually built right into myON instead of the Lexile placement assessment. So we've replaced that big 25-minute, 35-question timed adaptive assessment with a very short but accurate assessment. So that should make life a little bit easier for everybody. So yeah, so we're glad that you'll still have that opportunity. And again, that STAR, that embedded STAR assessment starts at grade 2. So the first thing you have here is the back to school resource kit. Again, if you click on this link, and actually let me put in the chat the URL for, oh, okay, good. Thank you, Carl. I was going to put in the URL for the resource page. But again, this is the back to fall kit, and this will have resources available both in English and in Spanish. And you'll see things like letter to families, login cards, just all kinds of things that are available to kind of kick off the new year. We're very excited about this newest component. We always were aware that myON had some wonderful resources for social emotional learning, and the company's actually put together this wonderful listing that shows how myON helps address the CASEL 5 SEL competencies. And so this flyer gives you a little bit more information. This may be something that you want to share with the counselors in your buildings as well. And then what Carl did is we actually took the listing that's available. It'll take a minute to populate, and I'm sorry, it's so small. Let's see. And so what this does, this is available in an Excel spreadsheet so that you can sort, but to put it up here, we had to save it as a PDF, but you can see the level audience. Again, if this is a K-3 resource, in this particular book, Teasing Isn't Funny. Again, it's picture window books. It's a nonfiction book. You can see the page count and which of the different CASEL competency areas that particular title is going to cover. We wanted to make this information as easy to use as possible. So when we've actually sorted that another way, which you'll see further down on the web page, into K2, 3, 5, and then secondary SEL lists. Your buildings, you've already all selected the third-party publishers, but in case you're interested in that information, again, these are the different publishers that can be added on to myON, and they're split into elementary and then middle school, high school publishers. So again, additional content to kind of customize. We do have some author seminars, and these are offered through Muses 3. So these are different authors that are in myON that we work with, and they do offer kind of pay-per-view, sorry for the commercial, they do offer pay-per-view seminars specifically for students as well as author talks. And then getting started with myON. So this is going to be, the rest of these links are going to be directly into Renaissance. So this is a little video. So if you wanted to show this video for your pre-K through grade 1 students, this video is actually going to show them more about myON. It'll cover the new interface. Here's one for elementary students and then grade 6 and up. And we have those resources available not only for students who are English-speaking students, but then also Spanish-speaking students. And here are the instructions for turning on the Spanish interface. And it was just kind of hidden down here. So I had a little pop-up that was blocking that, so I do apologize. So that'll show you how to do that. And then that little placement test that we talked about, this is actually a PDF that's going to give you more information about how that actually works, the kind of information, how long does it take, and again, more information, how to set that up for the whole building, or if you want a teacher to actually assign that building by building. So again, just some more information there for you. And then myON Renaissance does provide myON Smart Start. And if you've never used myON before, this is a great way to just learn more about myON and what are the kinds of things that you might want to do as you're getting started the beginning of the school year for how students are going to be reading on myON, what the faculty dashboard looks like, what the different reports look like. So again, this is a great resource for you. And then we have a number of different lists that we've created that provide a little bit more information. So what we've done is we've looked at that standards list, and as Carl indicated in the chat, that standards list is actually generated by a machine through a company called Edgate. And when that information is generated, sometimes it's not always accurate, and it does give you some information. And what Carl has done has gone back into the system and kind of created this. We got the listing of the Edgate TEKS alignments, and then Carl's gone in and added this additional information like the ATOS level, the Lexile level, the lower grade level, upper grade level, guided reading level, page count, and audio time. And again, these are available in spreadsheets as well. But again, if you were searching, if you said, well, I'm doing grade 4 ELA and I want to understand what's available, looking at a specific TEKS level. I probably went too fast, I'm sorry. Again, you can literally go in and search for a specific TEKS objective and then pull up books that will help support that specific TEKS. And so you'll see grade 3 ELA, grade 3 math, grade 4 reading and writing, grade 5 reading, grade 5 science, grade 6 in 7 and 8 reading, 7 writing, grade 8 science, grade 8 social studies, and then the biology EOC in the US history EOC. We have the titles of the books. We haven't put in the specific TEKS objective, but again, we know these cover the content that is covered on those specific EOC exams. So the long and the short of it is that these are resources that can be used to support classroom instruction. These are resources that can also help you if you're looking at HB 4545 and you want to use myON to help with any of that accelerated learning and the intensive tutoring. Again, myON has lots and lots of great titles that can help support that. This particular section shows you, again, and it'll have a link, it'll indicate whether it's a URL or a video, what types of data is shown in each of the reports. And again, sometimes within this page, there will be a video, but you'll always see the screenshots and lots of information about what's included on that specific type of report. How to view reports, the student dashboard and goals. And then we covered just a little bit about projects, but this will have more information, how to copy a project from the cloud, how to actually create projects, how to add the different types of tasks, and then how to edit projects, how to assign them to students, how to monitor. I don't know if you're pre-K, if you use the Frog Street curriculum, but we have done an alignment to the Frog Street curriculum to all 10 domains. So you'll see that here. And then this is actually, so I'm sorry, with the Frog Street curriculum, it's 9 themes and each theme has 4 weeks. So again, if we were to look at the alignment here, you'll see the specific This one's taking a little bit longer to load, but you should see the theme and then for each week of the theme. You know, theme 1, week 1, you know, theme 2, week 1, etc. So you'll see the types of books. And again, we have projects in the myON cloud set up for, and you'll just see week 1, theme 1. It won't say Frog Street on it. And then Carl also did the alignment to the pre-K guidelines across all 10 domains. And so again, you can kind of see what those look like. We did put in some of the recommendations for publishers beyond what's in the myON core curriculum. But those are clearly noted so that you can kind of see what those look like. And then each month we put out a calendar, and the calendar has a book every day. And so that book has something to do with that particular day, whether it's, let's see if we look at today, Billie Jean King defeated Bobby Riggs at the Astrodome. So again, we can see that there's that book, A Win for Women. So that talks about that big playoff. But again, you can see each of the books. We note things like Labor Day and Autumn with stars. And those are because we've actually put together activity packs. And since Wednesday is the beginning of fall, we can see that for autumn, again, you can look at that particular activity pack. Every book in myON actually has a URL associated with it. So if you're logged into myON, you literally can simply put that URL in the search bar and that'll take you right to that book. Typically, the titles with the different projects, excuse me, let me go back here, will cover a variety of age ranges. So you can see this actually goes all the way up into grade 12 with some more books for the middle school level. And then we do have other activities like leaf trace, dot to dot, coloring. Every activity pack will have a word search with the answers, and then also a crossword puzzle with the answer key. And that's something that Carl and I put together, and we just post those each month. And then this is just some additional information. And then if you have parents and families that have devices at home, there is a free myON app that's available so that students can load that on devices. And once the app is on a student's device, the student can actually download up to 20 books on a virtual bookshelf. And those books can be read without the internet. So that's a great way around the holidays, again, for students to be able to actually take myON with them, even if they don't have access to the internet. So I know I'm so sorry, I know that's a lot of information. I hope though that website that Carl and I have put together, that tiny URL, we've tried to kind of organize a lot of that great information that Renaissance has available for you in a way to make it more accessible and kind of by category. Again, myON has online help that's embedded at the bottom of the myON screen under that educator resource or that myON support button, that customer support button. So there are lots of great resources there. Are there any questions that you have for either Carl or myself? Does this kind of help you get a better understanding of myON, and for those of you who've used it before, some of the changes in the program for this year? Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you, Miss Ashley. We were hoping this would be just kind of a helpful refresher. And again, that back to school webinar page, which is up at the top of that tiny URL, is just fantastic. I know I kind of whipped off of that. Let me go back to that real quickly. Let me see if I can get there from here. Yes, I can. Hang on. So if I go back to this page, if I leave you with nothing else other than, is it on here? Oh, I didn't put it on here. I'm so sorry. I will send you the page that has all of the back to school. I referenced it and then I didn't have it. I thought I had put it on that page. I'll add it to the page, but I'll also send it to Miss Dolores, that how to webinar link. And that'll let you, that would let anyone in the district sign up for any of those free back to school webinars, or if you want to view one of the recordings that is there, you're absolutely free to go through and look at the any of the recordings. Are there any other questions that folks have? And Miss Ashley, I know you'd asked about that 90-minute training. When the district is ready to schedule that, I know one of the things is that Lacey Gustafson, who's the planning and implementation coordinator for Renaissance, she'll be reaching out to Ms. Trevino. And you may just want to ask Ms. Trevino to make sure that that's something that is covered. If you have things that based on this overview, you want to make sure are covered in that 90-minute training. If you get that information to Ms. Trevino, then when she has that conversation with Lacey, the whole point of that conversation is to understand what you want covered, what you know and what you don't know. And then Lacey can actually find the best professional development specialist to assign to the district to do that PD session. That's the best way to make sure that what you get covered gets covered. So that'll be very specific to that. And again, from that, that tiny URL, you can see the science lists at the grades. We were again looking at the grade levels where science is assessed, grade 5 and grade 8. The math content in myON is reasonable up through grade 3. There's not much once you get beyond grade 3, and that's why we just included the grade 3. Again, we were looking at that HB 4545. But if you go in at pre-K, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, and again, search in myON by standard, you're going to see content there. And Stacy, I'll get back to you as to who the building administrator is listed for Hutchins. Let's see. If you can just, if you don't mind putting your email in the chat, either in directed to Carl or myself, then I can let you know who we have listed as the building administrator. There's a generic building administrator, which is the one that I used, and that's one that is set up in the system when the account was created. And then we can actually create additional building administrator logins. So again, we're happy to help any of the buildings with that if folks don't have the right level of access that they need. And again, building administrator access gives you access to all teachers' rosters, lets you run reports across the entire building, not just reports for students that might be assigned to you as a teacher. So any other questions that folks have? Well, I'm going to go ahead and
I just